Hey everyone, I wanted to quickly go over and break down what we got with the latest Monster Hunter Rise trailer for the Nintendo Switch. During the latest Nintendo Direct, Capcom decided to drop a new trailer showing off some new and returning monsters, as well as some new areas for the game, as well as a longer look at the Rampage mode, which we actually had seen before but not into full detail, or definitely not to the scale in which we got to see it today. And for full context, in one of my previous videos, I spoke about the leaks and what we could possibly end up seeing in these upcoming trailers at the time. We knew that Yatsukadaki at the time, the spider monster now called Ragnakadaki, would be shown, and Ammodron as well. This is the dragon weasel type monster that many people talked about in previous leaks. We also knew that we would get a look at the desert map now called Sandy Plains and the lava caverns, which is the final map out of the 5. But what Capcom actually decided to do was merge together both the 4th and 5th trailer that we were expected to see into one big massive trailer, where we not only get to look at both of these new monsters, but we also get the maps alongside each one of them, plus a nice chunk of returning set of monsters like Vulvodon, Rajon, Basarios, Rathian, and of course Diablo. But the interesting one was definitely Apex Arceros, which I'll talk about in a bit. Then to close it all out, they gave us a much bigger look at the Rampage mode, which again they showed before, but now we actually get to fully understand it, where we had a lot of questions in the past. I actually want to tackle these monsters one at a time, since we actually get some nice descriptions on the Capcom website to give us a little bit more detail and context for each one of them. So for Ragnakadaki, it actually says that this creature's body is covered in webbing, as if it's wearing a white gown. It uses its webs to stop hunters in their tracks before attacking them with burning gas. It's always seen carrying its offspring with it, known as Rancoids. These little creatures provide their mother with support in moving around and catching its prey. Be very careful of their combined attacks. So what it's actually saying that just like the Great Itsuchi, it doesn't fight by itself, but it will actually throw its offspring to fight along with it, which is an interesting tactic. We definitely see it using the webbing a lot, and definitely there's like a flame attack that it does that's a widespread angle, so fighting this monster as a group is definitely going to be an interesting one. And again, arachnoid type monsters aren't necessarily as popular, and Nursilla I believe was the last new one that we got, so it's definitely cool to see this monster, which we've seen in the first official trailer for the game, but we now actually get to see it in full action. The other new monster that we got a look at is Ammodron, and this boy had been talked about in the leaks endlessly. I can't tell you how many conflicting information and reports we actually got about him, but we now actually get to have his full name, and we actually know what it looks like, which was actually hinted at by other leakers in the past. It says that this creature usually keeps to itself deep in the mountains, but recently had been approaching human inhabitants and attacking the hunters. Perhaps it's because of the Rampage. It's adept at using mud attacks and even defends itself by sticking it to its body. From its tail, it oozes a strange golden fluid, which it uses to dissolve the ground beneath its prey, arresting them in the mire so it can drag them under. What's interesting about this is that mud is now kind of becoming its own staple. We have Barrett and the Gyarados also in the game, which also use mud attacks. So now we have this brand new monster using mud type attacks, which I gotta be honest with you, based on the leaks and the information that we had, it didn't necessarily sound like it did. A lot of the information was like it was a lightning monster, perhaps a water monster, and it might still be when it talks about that golden fluid, but it doesn't look like it's using any sort of electricity attacks or water attacks as of now. But the trick is, we actually don't have a lot of gameplay for it, so we'll have to wait to see when Capcom decides to show a little bit more about it. Transitioning over to the returning monsters, we actually get to see a few of them that we talked about, starting with Vulvodon, which is actually one of the ones that we covered in the last leaks video when we talked about the data mining, and they found in the game's files that essentially this monster was going to be appearing in the game. We didn't necessarily know anything about it beforehand until the demo came out. It says that this creature is covered in thick red shells through enough to withstand magma, and is back to ruin your day. Its rounded body is perfect for rolling across hot surfaces, and its long tongue is ideal for capturing prey. Its saliva emits a paralyzing toxin that should be avoided. Vulvodon is a perfect starter monster because a lot of people love to make the starter armor. So you're definitely going to see a lot of hunters going for it because it definitely has some good stats, and I'm glad to see him return. The next monster we'll talk about is actually Rajon, which is not shown during the features. It's actually shown during the Rampage clips, where we actually see him being mounted by one of the hunters. It says that the series' most prominent purveyor of violence has a few sightings that's ever been actually reported, mostly because eyewitnesses do not survive long enough to tell his tale. It's said though that part of his pelt turns into golden color when it's enraged. That's actually the website's description, which is really interesting, alleging to, of course, the fact that he turns into basically Goku. We talked about this guy in the leaks before. He's one of the fan favorites. People love to fight him, kind of like Tigrex, kind of like Sinogre. But yeah, definitely great to see him return into this game. So I know a lot of people are going to be excited to be able to get their hands on his armor again. Basarios is another monster that we get a look at, and we actually have already seen his weapon and armor set in the game, obviously because of the hunting horn in the demo. That armor was already shown and is being used in the game already, which is interesting because he hadn't been shown in the past. The website description says that this flying wyvern has its characteristics of rock-hard carapaces returning once again. It burrows underground, mimicking rocks and savaging oblivious prey. He uses his toughness of his body to devastating effects by charging his foes. And once again, when I talk about Basarios, I always question if Ruby Basarios will be once again be brought back into the game, because that's a really interesting fight and a really cool armor set, especially with the contrasting colors. The gray and blue one are cool, but I think the gray and hot pink one from Ruby Basarios are even better, and I definitely want to see him return. It's interesting that they decided to show Rathian in this trailer, because in the last trailer we got to see Rathalos, and they usually put them both together, but this time they decided to split them up into completely different trailers for different areas altogether. It says that this series' evergreen monster is back again to throw fireballs in your face. With its powerful legs and poison-secreting tail, it hunts mainly underground, earning its moniker Queen of the Lands. Again, it's already available in the demo. It's interesting that they're introducing it now officially, even though basically you already got a chance to kill it plenty of times. And they didn't show the armor, but we actually seen a few clips with the armor already. So a lot of Rathian armor is pretty good starter armor as well to begin with. So excited to see finally them confirming it. But again, it was already playable and a monster that you could kill in the demo. So it's cool to see. One of the monsters that I did talk about during the last leaks video was actually Diablos, that he actually had been found in the data mining. And it says that this unstoppable tyrant of the desert returns to trample many hunters beneath its powerful legs yet again. It is extremely territorial and it displays an inordinate amount of aggression towards any and all intruders. It uses its massive horns to charge at its foes, so extreme caution is advised when in the vicinity of this amazing creature. This one was kind of a no-brainer when I read about it during the data mine information about a month and a half ago, because the game actually releases at the same time that the movie does in Japan. Because you know that Diablos is featured heavily in the movie, it would make a lot of sense for them to just kind of put him in the game and get those shots and the trailers to be able to show like, hey, remember that monster from the movie? He's also in the game. You know, if people are definitely like casually looking into the game who aren't fans of the series, now them being able to see that the monster from the movie is in the game, it's kind of like an interesting, twofold to be able to just get people interested in the game that probably necessarily wouldn't have been any otherwise. Now this is an interesting one. Apex Arzuros is actually not mentioned on the website until you look through the Rampage information. And it says that the Apex has appeared as ugly head. You can tell by the look of an Apex Arzuros that this has a lot more strength than the regular species. So it doesn't actually say that this monster is available in the normal overworld as if you would hunt a normal monster, but he only is available in the Rampage according to the website. Doesn't say anything about maybe a special quest or anything DLC post-release where they'll make him available in the normal hunt. But for now, it basically just says this is a special appearance monster only for the Rampage, which is really interesting. Now, if you actually followed the leaks, you know that Volstrax is actually going to have an Apex form. Interesting that they haven't shown that monster at all, but once we get to see him, we'll actually be able to see if these Rampage monsters are actually just available for this type of events in the Rampage, or they're going to be available in the normal hunts as well. When it comes to the new maps, it's actually really interesting, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, where Capcom decided to just merge both trailers, the 4th and 5th trailer that we were supposed to be getting, into one trailer showing off both of these maps. Each one of these was supposed to have their own separate trailers, but I guess they decided to just put them all together in one go. The Sandy Plains is a desolate wasteland filled with aggressive monsters that hunger for flesh and blood. During the day, the sun beats down on the plains mercilessly, but at night it's lit up by the cool moonlight. So essentially, from what I've heard other people mention, this seems to be a remake of an old map. So it's definitely cool to see it come back in a new light. Kind of like the Flooded Forest, they're doing a new thing with already established idea. So it's definitely cool to see that this map is taking a lot of inspiration from the past. The Lava Caverns is the final map that we actually get to see in the game. There's been a lot of speculation whether there's gonna be another map, perhaps a hidden map or something like that, or specific stages like for challenges where we actually get to see different aesthetics and surroundings. But so far, these are only the maps that we've been able to get, not just from the data mining or even the leaks, but just the ones that they've shown off already. So it says that these large cave systems are divided into searing hot areas with flowing lava. A nice cool area with a beautiful pure set of water is also available. It would be a wonderful mystical environment if it wasn't teeming with monsters. So the Lava Caverns are also kind of like a mixture of all maps, I want to say, but I'm not necessarily too sure about that. But again, these two new maps, just exciting to see that we have different environments to check out, and definitely the panning overall shots that we get to see are really cool. There's just a lot of variety overall for these type of maps that, you know, they do have like one specific premise, tucked in corners. They definitely have little specific areas that are like different aesthetics, different backgrounds, different things to do. So, you know, it's cool to see. Transitioning over to what we actually got to see from the Rampage, it says that the Rampage is a catastrophic event where countless monsters attack the village all at once. People have lived in fear since ancient times, but nobody knows why it actually occurs. Cameron has fallen victim to this phenomenon numerous times as well, and especially since the Rampage last happened 50 years ago, came close to wiping out the entire village. Hunters are tasked with taking on hordes of monsters using their weapons. Hunting installations and new wyvern riding features are also available to prevent them from breaking through. So essentially it's kind of like a horde mode where you're just trying to stop them from basically getting into the village. What we actually get to see in the trailer that is more detailed than previous shots that we got before is that there's a lot of siege weapons and then just a lot of traps laid around almost everywhere. So what I'm guessing is that depending on how much you attack a monster, perhaps you collect points, perhaps there's some sort of star system that as much as you keep racing it, you're able to use more weapons, you're able to put more traps down, and just kind of build up your defenses that way. Although, you know, again, it seems kind of difficult since you have to coordinate this with other people, and the Switch doesn't necessarily have a great way to communicate with people unless you're using text chat, but in combat, that's kind of like not a good idea. The last thing that they actually show is that you will get help from people from the village. Specifically, they show the twin sisters, and it says Hanoa and Minoto will join the fray. It says that you might find that more of your friends from Camera Village are willing to help out when the tough gets going. So ultimately, this is another way for the game to be able to balance itself in this Rampage mode where you can possibly get a couple of really tough monsters attacking you, and you might definitely be in dire need of help to be able to get through the battle to be able to actually achieve a victory. So yeah, my overall impressions is that we got a lot of information in a tightly packed trailer that I'm sure Capcom is going to be dropping even more little bits and pieces of information throughout the next couple of weeks in their Twitter account, which is something that I usually cover on my channel to begin with. They have been doing a lot of developer interviews as of late, providing us with a little bit more information about the game, and that's actually something that I definitely will be covering more of. There's actually an interview from IGN that I wanted to cover even more, because director Ichinose talked to one of the people from IGN Japan, I believe, as of I want to say the beginning of the week, where they gave him more information. So I definitely want to cover that as well, and that's probably going to be one of my upcoming videos. But yeah, that's about all for now. Basically, just really excited we got another trailer. I was expecting the direct to have something Monster Hunter related. I wasn't sure if it would be a full trailer or anything like that, but you know, just excited to see more information, and we get to see some new monsters. So hopefully you guys are excited as I am, waiting for this game to finally drop so we can go hunting together. If you're new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, but as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya!